Hello and welcome to Unlock Your Life, guys. I'm joining you from a remote studio today. I was having some Wi-Fi issues, so I'm over here at Yaden's at the home base. But I made a post a week or so ago about optimizing and leveling up. I'd sold off 400 units to focus on higher class assets, buying out my partners, deploying cash passively, buying some triple net assets. And Chris made a great comment. So I wanted to ask Chris Rood to be on the show. This is a guy that I've known for years, met through other mastermind circles. And Chris, one of the things that I noticed about you right off the gate, I have a pretty high, I would say, BS meter of people that are just full of it. And I heard you talking, and you were talking about mobile home parks, talking about being an operator. And I hear a lot of people in this space, and I can tell pretty quickly that they just don't know what they're talking about. They haven't been in the trenches, and I thought, man, this guy is genuine. He's got something to say. He's going to tell people the truth. I want to have him on the show. So, Chris, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming and sharing some of your experience and knowledge with us.
Yeah, absolutely, Jennings. I appreciate you having me on. And I'm attracted to people that are genuine and authentic and just tell the truth, especially in business, man. If you don't tell the truth in business, that's the fastest way to blow yourself up. And that post you made really resonated with me. And because I'm doing the same thing, right? I sold off, I own 19 mobile home parks. I sold off 5 last year, uh, took some chips off the table, and we deployed it into some better, higher quality assets that are just not as cumbersome, right? And like I made on that post, I mean, because I'm at a beach condo here in Destin, Florida. We bought that we're renovating, and I had to come outside here in the front because they renovate and making all kind of racket. But these are some of the asset classes that we are investing in that are, frankly speaking, just a lot less, I would say, cumbersome. Like I said on that post, and I think there's a lot to be said about, value add. I think everybody needs to cut their teeth on it. But as you become a more experienced operator, you realize there's a better way. But I don't recommend anybody to skip the process. I think you should absolutely cut your teeth on value add because it teaches you a plethora of things that you probably just don't understand and will not find out from gurus. How hard it is, number one. How many moving parts, number two. How you got to streamline all your processes and systems to keep efficiencies and keep your costs down. And four, I'd say, you have to, management is so key. I mean, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can go out there and find a deal, raise capital. Operations is senior to raising capital and finding a deal because anybody can do that, but the operation side is the most important. In addition to that, I think a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about real estate investing and passive income. About passive income. A lot of this stuff is not passive, right? There is nothing passive about passive income. And especially when it's a value add. Especially when it's a value add. Now, it sounds cool on the gram to say, look at me, I'm living off my passive income, which most of those guys are not living off their passive income. They have some sort of business. They either have, what I've coined the fast, medium, and slow money for myself. You have to have your fast and medium money handled before you go jumping into slow money, right? It's cool that Robert Kiyosaki says, hey, yeah, let's go buy a bunch of assets. But what Robert Kiyosaki didn't tell you that he makes millions and millions of dollars off of coaching and other businesses he has to help supplement his income while he invests in assets, right? Because if all you do, imagine this, Jennings, a lot of your followers that listen to this, imagine if you quit your job and all you did was just buy a bunch of value add properties without having a big pile of cash or having some kind of flow or drip of money to sustain your lifestyle. Would you be able to pay your bills?
No.
No. And I'll argue with people all the time that got coaching companies that are selling. There's one particular guy that argues with me all the time, and he gets his followers to hate on me. I get my followers to hate on him. And he's selling everybody a dream. And all you can do is all you got to do is buy a bunch of apartments or just passive income instruments, and you can quit your job and live off of your passive income. What he's not telling you is that it ain't that simple, and that he timed it right just like I did and bought a bunch of property prior to 2020 and his net worth doubled and tripled, and he did cash out refis, and he got a big pile of cash. They don't tell you the nitty gritty. Yeah, like I was telling you, people like to argue with me on social media because they're selling, a coaching company or a pipe dream that you could just quit your job and live off your passive income, and all you got to do is just buy a bunch of rental properties, and you're going to build wealth, live off your passive income, and just shit, man, you're going to sell off into the sunset. And it's a half truth, right? There's gradient scales, and the key word gradient scales of investing when you start buying rental property or even start accumulating assets. I had to coin for myself fast, medium, and slow money, right? What is fast money? Fast money is your W-2 job. It's stuff that transacts on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. It's your active income. It's how you pay your bills. You got to have that stabilized before you do anything in real estate. It's wholesaling. Wholesaling, you get paid within 2 to 4 weeks. It's a small business where you get paid, every week or every day for, services delivered, right? That could be, a HVAC company or a mechanic shop or even a coaching company. That's fast money. Media money is a 3 to 6 month process out where it's more risky, but you get bigger rips on your investment. That's going to be flips. That's going to be small land developments. That's going to be like the land home package you see me doing, where I'm dropping trailers on land and selling them, making 50 to 70,000 a trailer. I don't get paid for 3 to 6 months, but it's bigger rips. It's a gradient scale of getting paid, more risky, more payment, and it takes a little bit longer time. Slow money is what? Buying whole real estate, long land development deals. I build neighborhoods. I've got 3 neighborhoods I'm building right now. Some of those I'm 3 years deep into. We haven't made any money yet, right? Because it's a long process. Rental property, mobile home parks, apartment, value add stuff that you're going to go and buy it at 30 to 50 cents on the dollar and do all the value add, increase the rents and increase the value. Dude, that could take 2 to 4 years sometimes, some of these projects. And what people don't fail to tell you on social media is that, you can't just buy all these apartments, buy all these mobile home parks or this value add stuff and quit your job. If you're going to do that, you have to have one of two things. You have to have a pile of money that you already have saved up, or you have to have your fast and medium money stabilized where you have flows of income coming in to support you while you start your slow money projects, right? And how do you know when it's time to get into slow money and start buying whole and rental property and all that? When you start having a tax problem and you start knowing how to buy right and you understand the construction process. This is why I like to take people from wholesaling to flipping, then into buying whole, because wholesaling teaches you how to buy right, heavily discounted from motivated sellers. Flipping forces you to understand the construction process. And then if you're going to flip, you have to understand how to raise capital. So if you understand how to buy right through wholesaling, you understand how to raise capital because now you know how to buy right. When you know how to buy right, it's not hard to raise capital. And then when you raise capital, you can buy flips. You can start flipping properties and understand the construction process. Now you're making a little bit of money and you're starting to pay taxes. You have a tax problem because you maybe made $500,000 or $1 million flipping and wholesaling. Now you want to go and graduate to buying whole. The problem with most operators and most people that want to get into real estate investors, becoming a real estate investor, is they start off with buy and hold. They start off with buy and hold, thinking that they can just quit their job because we've all read Rich Dad, buy assets, right? There's a lot of skipped gradients in there that if you skip, it will hurt you. This is why 90% of most investors that get into real estate quit, because they go straight to buy and hold before they understand how to buy right, before they understand how to raise capital, before they understand the construction process. I have a progression chart that I live and die off of that I teach people. Elementary school is wholesaling, how to buy right, buying at wholesale prices through direct-to-seller marketing. That's the foundation. If you can't buy right, that screws up everything. You make money when you what? When you buy. Everybody knows that. But a lot of people skip that and they go straight to buy and hold. You start off with wholesaling because it forces you to buy at wholesale prices, and it forces you to become a marketer. Then you graduate to middle school, which is what? Raising private capital. It's easy to raise private capital when you understand how to buy properties at wholesale prices. Then you graduate to what? High school. That's flipping properties. That forces you to learn the construction process. So you're buying at wholesale prices, you're raising capital, you're flipping. Now you're ready to go to college, which is buy and hold. That is the proper gradient scale. Now, if you have all those in order and you know how to do that already and you got a pile of money, dude, go after it. But I think there's a lot of people, and you've seen, and you probably know a lot of the same people, man, they really have hurt themselves because they went too big too fast, and they didn't understand how hard this is, and they didn't understand that you have to have some money coming in before you do all
So
that, or a big pile of money.
yeah, so I want to hit on a few things because you said a lot of good there. And I was talking to actually Mark Evans, who I think you know, a week or two ago, and he was saying, you can't necessarily teach people from where you're at right now. You got to teach them from where you were. And I think about that of going through the steps. Like I don't crap on value add multifamily or mobile home parks or self storage or flipping houses or anything because all that it builds momentum and it builds experience to get to where you want to go. And I think about this. I just bought a triple net commercial deal. Well, yes, it's backed by a 10-year corporate guaranteed lease by private equity. But if that guy fails, I'm on the hook for $10,000 a month, and I better have $100,000 set aside to back that deal up to get it sold and to get another tenant in. Or in 3 months, I'm going to be foreclosed on. And so it's like that's kind of a college level deal.
Absolutely.
The first multifamily I ever bought was a 12 unit, and I bought it for 250 grand. So I bought it right. The guy owner financed 70%. I had one investor come in and I flipped it in 18 months and I put over 100 grand in my pocket, and that built runway to keep on going because it was like that midterm money, and I also had sold my construction company and I'd owner financed that, and they were paying me, $8,000 a month. So I had some, steady income coming in there to make that turn into doing these bigger projects. And
But you also understand the construction process by owning a construction company.
right, did that for 15 years. Yeah. And so when I see people in the deal room, I mean, one, we only take people that are already in the field. It's like they're already a wholesaler, flipper, they're a contractor, they're in the real, they own rentals already. Because this is like kind of graduate school stuff. I don't want to take the newbie, sell them on the dream of, hey, you can go out there and buy an 80 unit for your first deal, and it's going to go great, and you're going to be successful. Maybe, but probably not. And even people that already have a couple rentals, I'd like to see them do a 12 unit, a 15 unit, an 18 unit, do a couple of those, because if you make a mistake, you can get your hands around that kind of deal. Versus, I mean, I bought a 200 unit. I mean, my mortgage was 50 something $1,000 a month. If something goes sideways, it's really going sideways on that.
I
And so
totally agree
you
with you,
really
man.
got to have that experience level.
Totally agree. I hear people like Grant Cardone saying, "Yeah, it's not even worth buying a 20 unit or something. You should just go straight to bigger. Bigger is better." I call bullshit on that because he's speaking from a level that is so far beyond everybody else. He can't see the awareness of where somebody's just starting. Nobody should buy a 100-unit apartment on their first deal. I bought a 24 unit on my first deal. You said you bought a 12. I had to cut my teeth on that. You got to think in terms of gradient scales and learning and building layers of skills and foundation to set you up for that 100, 200 unit apartment.
Yeah. And even where I'm at now, it's like it's true. The buy and hold stuff that I've stabilized and refinanced, 3, 4, 5 years into those deals, they're cash flowing well. I just got Yaden sent me an email. I just got $7,000 from our Lexington property. And it's like, okay, cool. It's working. But I've owned that since I think 2019. And so
That's
it's
that's
kicking it's
that's the
kicking
hard
off.
truth. That's
Yes, but
that's what nobody wants to hear, man. Nobody wants. They all want to think you're just going to buy properties and live off your cash flow. It takes years to stabilize an asset. I don't look. I do not look at buy and hold for cash flow. I underwrite it to cash flow. But you know why I buy rental property? First and foremost, to hedge myself against the money printing machine in Washington, right? To hedge against inflation, to get that appreciation. That's first and foremost why I buy rental property. Two, depreciation, so I don't pay taxes. I hadn't paid taxes in 11 years. Three, principal pay down. Then four, cash flow. That is the correct order. If I want cash flow, dude, I'm buying a business. All my businesses spit out way more cash flow than my mobile home parks or my short-term vacation rentals. You have to match up fast money, your business, just like I have a wholesaling business, makes a lot of wholesaling flipping business. That's fast and medium money. That prints off a lot more money than any of my rental properties. But I
yeah.
use my slow money to offset my fast and medium money. They complement one another. One without the other is foolish. especially in this environment where interest rates have doubled, insurance has doubled, and in some cases tripled. Cost of labor has doubled and tripled. Cost of material has doubled. Dude, you telling me you living off your cash flow in this day and age? You're full of shit. It is so hard to make shit cash flow.
I agree. This dental practice I bought, I was transparent. I laid out the numbers, and it cash flows about $1,000 a month. And it's a true triple net, so I believe it will cash flow $1,000 a month. And people are like, "Oh, you tied up this cash to cash flow $1,000 a month." I'm like, "No, I'm amortizing $24,000 a year. I'm also getting 3% rent escalations. I also bought it in Charleston, like right there on James Island, like on Folly Road, across from a Publix. Like that's why I bought it, is because when I'm 65 years old, that property is not going to be worth 1.9 million. It'll be worth 2.9 million or 3.9 million. And that's the game that I'm playing with that. I'm not the, oh, look, I got $1,000 a month of cash flow. Like, honestly, I'm leaving that in the bank account because an air conditioner is going to break at some point,
That's
and
right.
I am on the hook for that. So
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, if
you're totally right. So
yeah,
what do you? I mean, because I get this question, and for the ways that I'm supplementing, I did a whole podcast on slow, medium, and fast money, and for my fast money, I'm doing hard money lending, right? I'm lending out my own personal capital. I'm lending out some of my own investors' capital in first and second position mortgages that I understand. Um, I'm also, I'm getting income from the deal room. I'm selling things. Like if a guy brings me a good flip, and I'm like, oh, that's a good flip. I'll fund that flip, and I'll be a partner with him, make a pop. I'm selling stuff. Like I'm not necessarily going to hold everything for 20 years. Like I may hold something for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and if I can make a rip on it, take some chips off the table, I'll do that. But I still have my core of like, this is the 20-year stuff that I want to hang on to. But without that, it's like, if you're drowning in the pool, and somebody hands you a baby, that's what's like
yeah,
taking on, you know,
yeah.
a
Well,
multifamily
well,
thing that's going to make it work.
well, you said something very pertinent to being a professional real estate investor, and that's having a 20-year plan, like stuff you're going to keep for 20 years. Like every asset will eventually become a liability. Period. You can't hold it forever. Another guru argues to me, buy and hold forever. Bullshit. You go ahead and buy and hold forever. Everything you buy, I guarantee you will go bankrupt. You have to constantly be recycling money. You recycle money into better, newer, quality assets, right? Better areas, better condition, better assets, newer construction. And if you're not doing that, you're going to get hosed.
I agree. I agree. But going back to what you said, the only reason I'm able to do some of this is because I bought heavy value add multifamily. I bought for pennies on the dollar. I took on stuff that was a lot of work and a lot of risk, and I busted my ass for a year or two to stabilize it. You know, we bought a half empty complex out in Oklahoma and for, all in for 8 million, sold it 3.5 years later for 12.6 million. You can't do that buying a pretty nice class A multifamily in Fort
No,
Lauderdale. Like it's not going to happen, you know?
no,
And
no.
so you gotta be
You got to start
willing
there.
to, you gotta start somewhere,
But you got to understand what you're getting yourself into also. It's not sexy. It's super hard, and it's going to take longer than you think, and you're going to have more problems than you can even imagine.
Yeah, yeah. It can be. I mean, we just sold off a 34 unit on Friday. It was in Columbia, rough asset. Never should have bought it. Bought it back in 2020, and numbers look good on it because it was a Class D asset. Of course, the numbers look. Oh, I just got to rent this for $700 a month, and I'm going to be printing money. And until people are breaking in windows, squatters, fires, vacancy, delinquency, city ordinations or ordinances against you for like leaving trash around. On and it was just a revolving door of problems.
Yep.
And I finally, through a ton of work, got the rent roll up to about $20,000 a month, and I got it sold, and I got my money back out of it, and well, actually I lost about 150 grand, but I got my investors made whole, and I got out, and me and Yaden bore the loss as a learning lesson.
But you
But it's like
need
I
that.
don't
You need
hold
that
that.
though as an investor. It
Say
gives you
what?
perspective. You need that as an investor. It gives you perspective. You know not what you'll never do again.
Yeah, yeah, and And there were other things that, it's like this just doesn't fit where I'm going anymore. And there's other assets I hold that I'm like, hey, I love it. I've got the management in house, or I've got a great third party manager on it that's working out. And but if that manager called me and said, hey, I'm going to quit, I may consider selling it because I understand how important that management is. And if I'm not local there, I'm rolling the dice again. So it might be the right time to sell that at that point, not being so attached to stuff. So
Absolutely.
let's talk brass tacks. Let's say somebody comes to you and they're like, "Hey, I've got, I've flipped a couple houses, I got a few rentals, and I want to go bigger." What would you say to them?
I would tell them, do you have enough capital saved for one? Do you have at least 100, 200,000, whatever it would take you to float that note for a year? Let's just say the mortgage $10,000 a month. You better have $100,000 to float that for at least a year, just as a safety precaution for one. Two, I would tell them to start off with something in their backyard that they can self manage and keep an eye on and control the asset, not to go buy 2 states away or 10 hours away. And I would tell them to vertically integrate, to control the whole process from start to finish. Don't just depend on property management to go and try to do a value add. You better have a partner that's boots on the ground, or you need to be doing it yourself and managing the project to make sure you create as many efficiencies as possible and self manage. And it's gonna be a whole lot of work. And but you're gonna, dude. There's no coach out there that's gonna teach you. They can give you the pointers, but going through the mess of contractors trying to steal from you, or people just doing shoddy work, and you not checking on them and make sure it gets done right, getting on a timeline and make sure all your contract is set up on time. That's the shit that not a lot of people want to talk about. That's the real nuts and bolts of being an operator of value add, that you have to be there, you have to watch everything, and you can't do this remotely.
Yeah, I agree. And as my portfolio grew, it kind of dawned on me. I'm like, man, I really need cash reserves, like, because something's going to go south, and it doesn't necessarily have to just be me, but the partners in that deal need to understand. Look, if we don't have the money to pay the tax bill, we're each going to have to pony up, $10,000, $20,000 to pay this $80,000 tax bill on this property. And if they don't got it, then somebody's gonna. I mean, then probably it's gonna be on me. And so it just as that kind of weighed on me as my portfolio scaled. I hit about 1,000, 1,200 doors, and I'm like, this is if I keep going this way, this is not good. Like I don't
No.
have a good grip on my portfolio, and if I go to 2,000, 3,000 doors, it could implode if the economy turns, which it did, over the last 2 or 3 years. So back in 22, 23, I just was like, all right, I'll still buy something if it's just a crazy deal, but like I'm just gonna just focus on getting my house in order. And that
Yep.
served me because I saw colleagues and them. I mean, they're all over social media. They just kept scaling and kept scaling and they got 4, 5, 6 foreclosures on their books now.
Yep. Yep. It's
And then,
nasty.
not that that's the worst thing in the world and you can overcome adversity, but at the same time, it's just not something I want to live through. I'd rather make a little less and sleep at night.
Well, you don't have to have 2,000 doors or 10,000 doors to be successful. Too many people watch too many social media stars, and they have too many supposed tos. Like, you're supposed to have 1,000 units, or you're supposed to live off your passive income with your apartments, or you're supposed to this. All that shit sounds cool on social media, but it doesn't check the box in reality, right? There is nothing wrong with you having 2 to 3, 4 to 500 units that are super dialed in, managed well, great equity positions that you could live off of, as you age and you pay down the mortgage. I don't look. All of my passive instruments. I got up to about 750 units of mobile homes. I sold off 5 parks. I'm probably down to about 400 right now, 430, and I took chips off the table because I need cash is an asset, right? Especially when the market pulls back. Everybody was looking for cash flow, right? Dude, you need a pile of cash also in a bank account, and you need to have a steady drip of money coming in from your fast and medium money through vertical integration or through whatever it is that you can make more fast money. For vertical integration for me is, my wife manages all of our, we own a bunch of short-term vacation rentals on the beach here in Destin, Gulf Shores, Alabama, and high-end destinations. We took over that. That's 20% in property management on properties that each do 200,000. That's 40 grand on each property that we're managing. That's not hard to manage. That's vertical integration. I own a bunch of mobile home parks. So what do? I go get my dealer's license and I start selling myself mobile homes at cost. And then I start doing land home packages where I can buy at cost and go flip them and get more money coming in, right? So there's a lot of things to be just a buy and hold rent guy, dude. I don't want to do that. Like I watch people. There's guys that all just be a full time buy and hold operator and self manage everything, and that's not how I don't want to be. Fixing toilets, termites, and turds my whole life, right? I'd rather have businesses that print money and I hold it in real estate, and I use real estate more as an inflation hedge, depreciation instrument, store value, and then last cash flow, right? Because if you're trying to live off of cash flow in real estate, it's just, dude, it's so hard. It's if you want to
Yeah.
have a good lifestyle, right? I have an unbelievable lifestyle. I travel with my family. We always. I mean, I'm in Destin, Florida right now, getting this condo ready. But I have a bunch of businesses that print a lot of money. So I just take that and I hold it in great asset classes, and I constantly recycle money into shit that doesn't require a lot of maintenance, that has good quality tenants, like long term, like my mobile home parks. I don't look at mobile home parks like I don't want to have that asset in 20, 30 years. I look at like a mobile home park, a value add, as a giant flip. If I can get it for 30 to 50 cents on the dollar, I can stabilize it and then flip it to somebody and make a big rip and 1031 exchange it into something like this on the beach where I got high quality tenants and the construction is newer and it's going to be good. And, I don't have to worry about this asset in 20 years. That's what I want to keep rolling my money into. Nothing wrong with value add, C class, but you need to make sure that once it's stabilized, value of that cash that you can pull out is way better than a little bit of cash flow that you're going to make, because in another 5 years, it's still a 60-year-old product or a 40, 50-year-old product. You got to turn money, recycle money into better quality assets.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree, and I think that taking chips off the table, it helps you to reevaluate, like, where am I going, what do I want to do, um, and it simplifies your life, and also with the vertical integration. Like, I'll give you an example. Tell you a story. One deal, we had 73 units that we bought. It was a huge value add. We got it remodeled, we got it filled up, and I wanted to do it fairly passively. So I had third party management, and it was just never really making money. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just sell this thing. And I put it on the market. I got a couple offers. They really weren't. I could make million six on it, but it really wasn't what I wanted to do because I was gonna have to split it up. And I thought, you know what? This is in my backyard. Let's take the management in house. Let's tune this thing up. Let's invest some capital. Let's buy out our partners. And and that's what we did. And I mean, we got real focused on that one property, and we got it appraised for 7 million. We bought out our partners. We refinanced out the loan, and it's we've got the management in house. So now we're making 4 or 5 grand on the management. We're making another $8,000 on the cash flow. We're paying down a couple $1,000s a month in, or shoot, we're paying $5,000 6,000 a month in principal down. And it's like, okay, that's a 20-year play for me, because in 20 years, that building will be worth 14 million, and it'll be rented, instead of rent roll at 86,000 a month, it'll be 150,000 a month, and it'll be paid off. And yeah, I'll have expenses still with it, but I should be able to cash flow 100,000 a month just off of that one deal, or 70,000 a month,
Yep.
whatever. And I own it. Me and Yaden and Crystal own it 100%.
Yep.
That's the
What
kind of
that would
and
make
that's
more
just
sense
one
to
long
hold
term deal.
long term. Yeah, that would
Yeah,
make more sense to, if your intention is to pay it off and have it with no debt, because everybody says, oh, never have debt equity. Dude, I would disagree. I mean, I'm 44. I don't know how old you are, but dude, when I'm 55 or say 60, 55, 60, 65, I'd like to have a good part of my portfolio paid off.
yeah,
You can sleep, dude, when you don't have a 20, 40, $50,000 mortgage you're stroking a check for, every month. That's a lot of value.
It
There's a
is.
lot, and you know, because you could pull a line of credit and have access to that cash. My model is I want to pay down all my assets and pay them off in the next 15 years, 10, 15 years, and just have lines of credit pulled on everything. That way I have access to cash, but have no debt in case I do need to pull some cash out. But you have 100% cash flow.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of like I like that, and I think you do need to have some gems that you're willing to hang on to and put up with and put the work into, but you don't have to have that attitude about everything. We've got a property in Moline, Illinois. It's doing fine, but we've got third party management on it. I don't own anything else in Illinois. I don't want to own anything else in Illinois. It's like, why is this in my portfolio? And so
Yep.
we're selling it, should close in the next 60 days. It's under contract, and get it off my books. It's just like,
Right.
I don't need the risk and the problems and the headache from that. I can better focus on using that cash to buy out partners on properties that are performing, or using that cash for more hard money lending, which is going to bring in consistent monthly cash flow. You know, I'm not a big house flipper. Like I never did a lot of that. I never really did any wholesaling, but I got that construction background, and I did flip a lot of foreclosures. Now that I think about it, with a partner. So my journey is similar, and I like that because apartments, it's like, if you can't be all in for 70, 75%, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Your margins are so thin that one little thing goes wrong, you're going to be upside down. Don't just buy something just to buy it. You got to find a better deal. You got to look where others are not looking.
100% agree with you, man. Yeah, you just got to learn how to buy right. I mean, if you can buy right and have equity, when cash flow fails, what saves you? Equity.
Because you can
Equity
sell it,
saves you. You can sell
or
it,
you
and
know
this
it is.
you can do whatever the hell you want with it. Like, because listen, flow will fail sometimes. You may have something. You have a fire, or you have a tornado or a hurricane, or dude, there's all kind of crazy shit. I mean, I had a mobile home park we stabilized in Pensacola. I kid you not. The day we stabilized it, we called our partners to say, hey, we're going to start taking distributions this month. We doubled the income. We are going to get a check next month. The very next day, a tornado came through it and wiped it out. The next
Wow.
day. That's the kind of shit that's going to happen. If you play this game long enough, shit's going to happen if you don't have a plan B or a pile of cash and have other exit strategies and other revenue streams, you're going to get hosed.
So let's talk about something everybody wants to talk about. How do we find deals? How are we finding good deals? You say you got to buy right. How do you do that?
Man, one of the core things that I teach is direct to seller marketing. If you look at like a triangle, right, you got the points, right? The fundamentals of one point is direct to seller marketing. If you master direct to seller marketing, you can find the motivated sellers anywhere. Text blast, direct mail, cold calling, PPC, SEO, Facebook ads, agent outreach. That's all direct to seller marketing. The amateurs buy on market, the pros buy off market, direct to seller. Right? If you don't know what you're doing, what's the first thing you do in real estate? You go hook up with a realtor to go find you deals, and the realtor, that's like asking a janitor, how to buy an apartment. That realtor probably has no, or even a broker. They don't even own apartments, right? But you're getting your information from somebody that doesn't even know. You find your own deals, right? You go get your own deals direct to seller. And then second, you got to master raising capital. Third, you need to build a brand. That's going to help you get off market deals. It's going to help you raise capital. And in the middle of that triangle is allies, partnering up with great people, great operators. Somebody can raise the capital, somebody can be the sponsor of a loan, and somebody else can be boots on the ground operations. And then you work all your efficiencies out through processes and systems, through making mistakes and getting real groomed in on dialing that asset in, right? And there is no shortcut in it. It's really hard, and but finding deals is really probably the most important thing. If you guys are going to be a good operator, dude, you got to become a good marketer.
I agree. I agree. And that's something that's really helped me with just letting people know what you do so that you're top of mind and staying top of mind. Like, I got an opportunity just yesterday. It's a property that's been listed for 1.2 million, and I know the person, and they're like, "Hey, we'll take X." I don't want to say it on the podcast, but it was like quite a bit less. They're like, "We're motivated. We need to move this, and we've taken it off the market. You know, can you move it for us?" And so I'm going to go to a couple people that I think this will be a good fit for, and be like, "Hey, you can get this price, and you can probably get some seller carryback. Like, this is a solid opportunity." That's not on market, right? What's on market is we want 1.2 million all cash for this deal. But really, if you know the inside track, it's like, okay, there really is a deal to be done here because they know me, they know that I know people that know stuff. And so I may not even get paid through that transaction, but I can bring value to my community through that. And people reaching out to me, like raising capital. I have people text me, almost weekly. They're like, "Hey, you got a deal coming up? What I got some money. What can we do together? I want to do. I want to invest with you." Because they just seen me telling the truth and keeping my word year after year after year after year, and that only happens with time. It's not immediately. You're not going to get people sending you off market stuff and asking to invest with you like without getting some wins and momentum. And that's where I think it's so critical what you're talking about. It's like, hey, if you've successfully flipped 10 houses and you bought a little 10 unit and now you got a 20 unit under contract, I got a lot more confidence in you than the guy that was like a W 2 worker that's trying to close an 80 unit that doesn't know what they're getting into.
Dude,
Do
that's
they have?
most people. That's most people. They come
Yeah.
from a W-2 job, or they just own a business and they don't understand real estate and construction and how to buy right. And they go to a mastermind or buy a course, and or they just watch people on social media buying this and they think they could just go. You got to be a smart cat to do this. You can't be no dummy. You got to know how to buy right. You got to understand construction. You got to be able to raise capital. You got to be able to manage people. You got to be able to partner up with the right people. You got to be a great communicator, and you got to be a great leader, and you got to be honest and ethical.
Yeah. I yeah, I agree. It takes time. And hopefully this podcast isn't too much of a downer for people because it's on one hand, you got to help people dream a little bit and realize, hey, I can do this because this is one of the only fields where you really can buy stuff with creative financing. You really can buy stuff no money down. You can raise other people's money. I mean, I saw in your bio you've built a 40 something $1 million portfolio. Mine's similar size. It's like that was never possible without this field. I could have never bought these kind of assets without creative strategies and the real estate debt markets and partnerships, et cetera. And so it is a phenomenal thing. And it's worth it. It's worth it to take the time to do it. But like anything else, it takes real effort
Yeah.
to get good at it.
Well, let's just talk about the positive because, yeah, we were very negative, Nancy. But if you set the tone for people, like my wife tells me all the time, dude, you scare more people away than you probably attract when you're trying to. But I'm a realist. I'm optimistically realistic, right? Yeah. I wouldn't do anything else. This lifestyle that real estate has created for me and my family. I owned 4 mechanic shops in my 20s, and I was brutal, right? I was working 6 days a week, stressed out. Yeah, I was making probably about 250, 300,000 a year, but I had no time. I had no freedom. I was always stressed out. There is no other business out there that gives you the amount of time, the amount of wealth, and the amount of freedom that real estate does. But there is a price you're going to pay, and there is going to be a sacrifice, but it's worth the sacrifice, like Jennings said. So I don't want to scare people. I just rather set realistic expectations because let's be real, there's so much bullshit on social media, especially with the the past probably 5 years, 8 years, with the gurus with the run up. Dude, you could be a retard and do this, and inflation covered up all your mistakes. The people that are left right now are real operators, even though we all got kicked in the balls. But if you're still standing and still doing real estate, you're a real operator. And you bought right, and you probably made some mistakes. Look, I got some mistakes right now, in the millions, right? I got a mobile home park right now that I bought that I got one tenant in it because it was a park that we bought next to a chemical plant. It was all workers, but it was getting astronomical rent. We bought it. The chemical plant laid off everybody, and everybody left. Guess who's been having to stroke a check the whole time? Me. That's the reality. Now, but I've got 18 other parks that I did well. Actually, I bought 19. Two of the 19 I lost money on. The other 17 I did great on. and we're still going to continue to do great on. The cool thing about, well, let me back up. In baseball, if you hit 300, you make it to the Hall of Fame. In real estate and business, if you bat 300, you go into the poorhouse. So that's why I'd rather set clear expectations. If I'm 17 for 19 with, buying mobile home parks, that's a really good average. But if I was, 3 for 19 or 6 for 19, I would be bankrupt. Right. So that's what I mean when I rather set realistic expectations. You can't make too many big mistakes. And that's why you need to start small, because like you said earlier, if you make a mistake with a 10 or 12 unit, that's recover. You can recover from that. You start off with a 60, 80 or 100 unit apartment complex, dude, that's the kind of deal that'll sink you and make you go bankrupt.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I couldn't agree more. And the thing though that real estate is very forgiving given a long enough time frame.
Sure.
I see that was one of the huge things, a mistake I made personally, and I see a lot of other people make it, is taking on these 12 to 24-month bridge debt loans and not realizing how long it takes to do construction, to fill these units up, to stabilize them, to get them refinanced. And I've had deals that were good deals, but I had to sell because I bought them on bridge debt. And so if I had just paid a little bit, or a little less leverage and gotten a 5-year loan, I would have had a better rate. I would have had time to make the turn. And luckily, I saw the writing on the wall and I dumped them before things really fell off the cliff. And then I swore off all bridge debt. I mean, for the last 3 or 4 years, I've bought nothing on bridge debt, and I don't think I ever will again. Because I just don't like that short time horizon that bridge debt gives you. Real estate can be so forgiving. Like you said, idiots can even make money because of inflation. Rents are going up. The market gets hot again, and you have the time to wait it out to sell at the right time. It's when you don't have the cash to sustain, and your runway gets shortened, or your biggest investor, which is your bank, you got a bad investor there. They want 9, 10, 11%. They want all their money back in 12, 18, 24 months. Like, that's a lot of stress. Everything's got to go right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the reality of doing this business. And that's why I tell everybody they need to work through a progression and learn through a gradient scale of learning. That's why I start everybody at wholesaling to understand how to buy right, then raise capital, then flip houses, then go buy a rental property. Go start off with a single family home or a duplex, a fourplex, a triplex, whatever it may be, and graduate yourself. Don't go straight to buying a 60, 80, 100 unit apartment complex starting off. And, it's just, there's gradient scales of learning, just like when you learn the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s when you go to school. If you didn't learn the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s when you went to elementary school, it screws up everything else. And the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s of real estate, number one, first and foremost, is how to buy right, buying at wholesale prices. If you don't understand that, dude, you're going to get whacked. And that's where a lot
You
of
know,
people,
the first real estate deal I ever did was a $5,000 double wide. It had no air conditioning, no heat, a lot of needed work. And I bought this thing in a mobile home park, and I fixed it up myself. I did all the labor. I spent about 5 grand, and then I sold it owner finance for $20,000. And the guy put down 3 grand, and I'm like, man, I'm a genius. This guy, I'm making cash flow. Da da da. Within 3 months, he stops paying me. I get into the house. His dogs have torn this thing to hell. He's abandoning it, and I got to go spend another $5,000 or $6,000 to fix this thing up again, because I thought he was like me. I thought, this guy's a good guy. He says he's going to pay me. I didn't really vet his credit. I didn't vet his job. I didn't do anything. I was like, if you give me $3,000, let's go. And that was like eye opening of like, okay, not all people are good people. Tenants are crazy. They can destroy everything you built within 2, 3 months, and you got to watch it. And so then the next one, I was like, all right, I'm going to be a little bit more careful vetting this one. And I grew it to 5 or 6 trailers. Then I bought a rental home. Then I bought another rental home. Then I bought a 12 unit. Then I bought a 19 unit. Then I bought a 42 unit. And then I bought a 80 unit. Then I bought a 200 unit.
yep, there you go.
So by the time I got to that 200 unit, I was like, all right, I kind of like, I know what I'm doing to some degree. I still had
Yeah.
lessons to learn, but that wasn't my first deal.
Yeah. You were an experienced Jew. And that wisdom teaches you so much. I mean, because dude, long term tenants, look, they're tough, man. I mean, I'm in the mobile home park business, and you long term, my business is really tough. These people are really rough around the edges, and you learn as you go, right? You know, we converted a lot of our mobile home parks, are starting to convert them to RTOs, right? Rent to owns, because it's pride of ownership, and they get to own the trailer. And honestly, you know, like this condo we have a bunch of these, you know, short term renters, are the caliber and quality of short term renters are just so much better than long term renters. You get your money up front, they go on vacation, they don't mess your stuff up because you can get your money from them if they do. So you learn as you go, just like triple net. You know, you're investing in some triple net. That's high quality tenants, right? So I think long term tenants, if you're going to scale that model long term and have a lot of units, you don't, eventually you got to upgrade to B plus, A minus. If all you have is C class spread out all over the country in thousands of units, dude, they're gonna eat your lunch. It's tough, especially if
Yeah.
it's, you got to spread out. I mean, if you got some in your backyard you can keep an eye on, and you got it dialed in with management, and got your value add really dialed in. But you got to be careful, like you said about that D class, man. You know, just because it's a high cap, don't mean you ain't gonna catch a cap. I know that from experience, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and like another commercial building I bought, it was two suites, and I paid $600,000 for 1,200 square feet. You know, Jennings from 5 years ago would have been like, "You're insane. What are you doing? You know, you're way overpaying." But it's in my hometown. It's on Main Street, right across from the little park where they do third Thursdays and farmers markets, and they've got festivals. There's thousands of people thronging through this square every week. And this is like irreplaceable real estate. And I could make, if I put 20% down, I could make it cash flow a little bit, you know, $700, $800 a month. I had to put down 150 grand. So you think, well, cash on cash return is in the tank. Yes, it is. But I know Somerville, and I know it's right outside of Charleston, and I know that Somerville's only going to get better. And I just bought in the best spot of town, and I had the cash, and I'm like,
But
I
Jennings,
got a
that
financial
that
advisor and a broker. They pay me every month on the 28th. I mean, it's like it's no problem getting the rent from these guys, and that's where I sleep better at night with that asset.
but you could have never started off like that, because see that's from wisdom and knowledge, and building skills, and have foresight and vision now. Because there's three ways to make money in real estate. You can capture value, which is what the value add process, where you buy at a discount and you capture value. You can create value, which is the construction process, understanding the construction process. And then you can do the third thing, which is the most knowledgeable skill that takes time, which you just said, and that's time value. You bought an asset in a great area because you understand that time and the migration patterns, and the value of that real estate is irreplaceable. Like you said, you're not going to make a bunch of ton of cash flow, but you know long term that that property is going to keep going up in value, and you understand that it's not going to decrease. That's timing value. Most people don't start off with that. So you capture value, you create value, and you can time value. Right, timing value for me would be buying. You know, I bought a big old cabin in Broken Bow. It's probably one of the most hidden gems an area. The migration of that area and how many people on vacation over there keeps going up and up. Same thing over here in Destin, right? That's timing value. I don't make a whole lot of cash flow from these properties, but the people that keep coming here, and the growth, I know I'm gonna be good because it's irreplaceable real estate, right? That's the same thing you just did. That's timing value. But that takes like, you know, a long time to better develop that skill. That's foresight and awareness and knowledge, right? Everybody's got to cut their teeth on, you know, capturing. Ideally you want to do all three: capture value, create value, and time value. But most people, you have to start off with capturing value, or, you know, a lot of people want to start off with creating value, but you want to capture value and steal it, and then you want to force appreciation through you know, the value add process, and eventually you stabilize that, you sell it off, you make a big rip, and you put that into better quality assets like what you just talked about.
Right, and that model has worked very well for me, and I don't crap on it. It's just, do I want to work that hard anymore? You
That's
know,
right.
and so like yesterday, my wife said, "Hey, you know, we're going to the zoo with the kids." And I looked at my schedule, and I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I have to do until about 3 o'clock, so let's go." You know, and the flexibility of being able to just say, "Yeah, want to go to the zoo with the kids and pet the giraffe and, hang out. And, she was very blessed that I was able to do that. And I was too. It was a fun day. And that's the beauty of real estate. Because in my
That's right.
construction, like, babe, I got 50 million things I got to do today. There's no way.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you, yeah, being full time construction, I mean, you ain't gonna have that kind of freedom. And that's what
Right.
you just said too with the value add stuff. If you got so many value add projects going, you ain't gonna have a whole lot of freedom, especially if you're the boots on the ground operator. I mean, if you're just sponsoring a loan or raising the capital, for me, what I like to get really good at finding deals, and I get really good at raising capital, and then I like to find and partner with great operators because I'm in a season of life. I got 5 kids. My last one's 11. I'm 44. I value my time and effort. I cut my teeth and did my share of value add and work like a dog in my 20s and 30s. But you get smarter and you work a little bit wiser, and that's what you're doing now.
On that dental office, I found that deal. I negotiated it. I lined up all the financing, and then I called my sister and I said, "Hey, you want to run this deal for me? I'll give you 30%." She's like, "Heck yeah!" And
Yeah,
like,
there you
okay,
go.
cool. I mean, she's better at it than I am. She's already like, renegotiating the insurance and making sure all the ACHs are set up and all this stuff. And like, she's a phenomenal organizer. I'm out there. I'm the rainmaker. I want to go find the next thing, but I gotta have those people because if you're just a rainmaker and you don't have those
That's
operational
right.
partners, like you're scaling chaos.
100%. You got the person that finds the deal, you got the person that raises the capital, and you got operations. It's triangle, right? And then you got allies in the middle. You got to figure out where you fit in that piece of the pie. And usually each piece of the pie gets 30 to 40%, depending on who's doing what and the size of the operation and value add. But you need everybody. You need a visionary like you. I would call you more of a you're a driver, right? If you got to know where you're at on the you ever taken the disc test, the personality test.
Mhm.
Most
Yes.
people, most people that are really entrepreneurial are drivers, right? They're not very analytical. They're not I'm not a spreadsheet guy, but dude, I can negotiate a deal with the best of them. I can raise capital, and I can get the deal to the finish line. Let the spreadsheet guys and the guys that are detail oriented pick up the pieces, right? And that's kind of where you got to figure out where you fit in the triangle of the deal.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Because when you try to do it all, for me, it worked for a while, but after you get I mean, you got one or two deals, three deals going on. Okay. You get seven apartment complexes, 10, 12, 14 that you're trying to keep them all, and you don't have the right operational partners. Uh, it falls apart.
Absolutely. Operations is key, man. You better make sure you partner up. It's easy to, like I said, it's easy to raise money and it's easy to find deals for me. I'm super particular about who I partner up with to be the operations, and I've set clear expectation. Hey, this is your baby. You're going to be married to this thing for the next 2 years, but I'm going to pay you handsomely. You're going to get a property management fee. I'm giving you 30% of the equity, but this is your baby, and this is what you're going to focus on for the next 2 years. And you got to set
Yeah.
those clear expectations.
Well, and the world needs all types because there's definitely, I would say, the majority of people are scared to death to raise capital. They can't do it. They don't understand the persuasion of it. They can't negotiate deals, and they're better suited to be in that role. They like that. They enjoy that. Whereas to me, it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's like that's not what I want to do. But they need me just as much as I need them. But it's like when I thought too much of myself. I'm like, yeah, the operations. That's the easy part. No, it's not.
No, it's
That's
not.
the most important part.
That's right.
So,
Right. No, this is
well,
good,
Chris,
man.
yeah, we're gonna. I know we got to wrap up here, and you got a lot going on there. But I appreciate you sharing some wisdom and along the journey. Telling people your perspective and how you see it going. And sounds like you're doing a lot of big things, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, likewise, man. I'd love to have you come out to one of my events, allies, and come, give your perspective. I don't like all the glory. I like to talk about the bad stuff because there is no learning lessons when you're winning. If all you're doing is winning, that makes you cocky, arrogant, it makes you stupid, honestly. The real lessons are in the losses. And that's if you can extract those losses without quitting, dude, you'll be a great entrepreneur and real estate investor long term if you can just hang in there and take it in the teeth and the balls, and extract those lessons and just go at it again, right? And that's why when I get on podcasts, I talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm glad we were able to talk about this and share some real wisdom.
All right, Chris. Well, have a great 4th of July, and we'll catch up soon, man. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Take care.